The Self as Knower by Annie Besant, read by Dave Marsland of Cardiff Theosophical Society. The Self as Knower. In studying the nature of man, we separate the man from the vehicles which he uses, the living self from the garments with which he is clothed. The Self is one, however varying may be the forms of his manifestation when working through and by means of the different kinds of matter. It is of course true that there is but one self in the fullest sense of the words, that, as rays flame forth from the sun, the selves that are the true men are but rays of the Supreme Self, and that each self may whisper, "I am He." But for our present purpose, taking a single ray, we may assert also in its separation its own inherent unity, even though this be hidden by its forms. Consciousness is a unit, and the divisions we make in it are either made for purposes of study or are illusions due to the limitation of our perceptive power by the organs through which it works in the lower worlds. The fact that the manifestations of the Self proceed severally from his three aspects of knowing, willing and energizing, from which arise severally thoughts, desires and actions, must not blind us to the other fact that there is no division of substance. The whole self knows, the whole self wills, the whole self acts. But for our present purpose, taking a single ray, we may assert also in its separation its own inherent unity, even though this be hidden by its forms. Consciousness is a unit, and the divisions we make in it are either made for the purposes of study or are illusions due to the limitation of our perceptive power by the organs through which it works in the lower worlds. Nor are the functions wholly separated. When he knows, he also acts and wills. When he acts, he also knows and wills. When he wills, he also acts and knows. One function is predominant, and sometimes to such an extent as to wholly veil the others. But even in the intensest concentration of knowing, the most separate of the three, there is always present a latent energizing and a latent willing, discernible as present by careful analysis. We have called these three the three aspects of the Self. A little further explanation may help towards understanding. When the Self is still, then is manifested the aspect of knowledge, capable of taking on the likeness of any object presented. When the Self is concentrated, intent on change of state, then appears the aspect of will. When the Self, in the presence of any object, puts forth energy to contact that object, then shows forth. When the Self is concentrated, intent on change of state, then appears the aspect of will. When the Self, in the presence of any object, puts forth energy to contact that object, then shows forth the aspect of action. It will thus be seen that these three are not separate divisions of the Self, not three things joined into one or compounded, but that there is an indivisible whole manifesting in three ways. It is not easy to clarify the fundamental conception of the Self further than by this mere naming. The Self is that conscious feeling over existing one, that in each of us knows himself as existing. No man can ever think of himself as non-existent or formulate himself to himself in consciousness as "I am not." As Bhagwan Das has put it, the Self is the indispensable first basis of life. In the words of Vachaspati Mishra in his commentary, the Bhamati, on the Shariraka Bhashya of Sankaracharya, no one doubts, am I or am I not? The self-affirmation I am comes before everything else, stands above and beyond all argument. No proof can make it stronger, no disproof can weaken it. But proof and disproof found themselves on I am, the unanalysable feeling of mere existence, of which nothing can be predicted except increase and diminution. I am more is the expression of pleasure. I am less is the expression of pain. When we observe this I am, we find that it expresses itself in three different ways. 1. The internal reflection of a non-self, knowledge, the root of thoughts. 2. The internal concentration, will, the root of desires. 3. The going forth to the external, energy, the root of actions. I know or I think, I will or I desire, I energize or I act. These are the three affirmations of the individual self of the I am. All manifestations may be classified under one or other of these three heads. The self manifests in our worlds only in these three ways, as all colours arise from three primaries. So the numberless manifestations of the self all arise from will, energy, knowledge. The self as willer, the self as energizer, the self as knower. He is the one in eternity and also the root of individuality in time and space.